We have other things to talk about tonight, folks. And today we had a banger of an episode drop. I will say I was not here last week and I did not enter this episode very hopeful because when things are bad, we'll tell you we're bad. And the last episode of Reacher was bad. Episode 7, not this week's episode, not today's episode, last week's episode. Episode 7 was bad. No excuses given. It was a lot of moving chess pieces on the board. We had to get this person here. And again, not all of it made sense. The characters were doing things because the plot said that they had to do them. And the things that they had to do to get there were excruciatingly dumb and made no sense. But I'm willing to give those slack because it paid off in a big way this week. Again, if you're going to make characters to do dumb things to make your plot work, yes, your plot is not good, but you better deliver something great. It better line up something fantastic. And let's see, we got our first comments in here about Reacher. Jon Snow knows nothing. The Reacher finale did not disappoint. What were your takeaways watching this week's Reacher?
I will slightly disagree. I was somewhat disappointed. We did get a few things that were really cool. I thought that the long drawn out poly fight was something that was pretty cool. There are several instances throughout the course of the episode where reality just kind of is checked at the door. And that's something that I kind of don't I don't know if that's something that is true to the book or not, but a lot of the things, like for instance, I'll just give you a for instance, right? Yeah. I am not a weapons expert. I know nothing about what affects a weapon and what does not, but it seems like taking a bullet out of the belt and putting it in the one end of the barrel should not make it backfire like that. So I don't know, I don't know exactly what happened. And I definitely would not be confident enough to stand in front of it after I did that. I don't know. We're talking about a 50 cal gun here, right? I mean, yeah. That's one of those things that, look, I get it. Reacher's like a weapons expert and he knows how to do that stuff, I guess. And he knows the kind of, okay. But, in the realm of reality, there's just something in my brain that said, but bullets are meant to go through the barrel. So how can it clog the barrel? I don't know. There's a lot that I don't understand about right there. But
well, if you turn it, I think what he did, he turned it backwards. So the is jammed in the barrel. So it's not going to fit. So now the barrel is jammed. And so if your barrel is jammed, the gun will backfire, so that.
See.
And the other thing that Reacher's a bit of a nihilist. So at that point, like, it's not like his plan was to purposely let Paulie get the drop on him, but Reacher's the kind of guy that's like, he has the thoughts in his head in the book all the time. Well, if this is the end, this is the end. And he doesn't really care.
Yeah.
It's not like he wants to die, but if it's time, he's not going to get all bent out of shape about it. That's kind of it.
And there was a lot of stuff like that. It's just like, he clearly, he crushed Paulie's larynx underwater. That was another thing that then Paulie apparently lived through. And there's just a lot of stuff that was just out there that was just like, in the realm of reality, I'm not sure how it would happen, but it is what it is. So
the big thing that got me as unreal, and again, the action was so over the top. There was so much great fighting and stuff going on. I will say that none of this went down this way in the book. It's all changed around. The big final confrontations, there was nobody on the compound with Reacher except Reacher was just Reacher. The Duffy wasn't there. The little Wava wasn't there. Neagley wasn't even in that book. So you could just imagine that none of it went down even close to this way in the book.
Yeah, for sure.
I was getting new stuff and I was enjoying it. The real thing that really killed me is the ambush at the beginning of the episode, right?
Yeah.
It all goes down, and somehow magically the only survivors are Reacher and Reacher's two DEA buddies. Not a single member of the ATF team survives. Not one.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, the ambush thing is kind of one of those things that was really odd. It's like, somebody was not doing their job, okay?
Yes.
Because when you case for what you think is an ambush, and there's somebody behind your ambush, and you're behind their ambush, you would think that you would see their ambush, but you didn't see their ambush, and so once again, we just had this discussion about Daredevil.
There's another perimeter beyond the perimeter.
I don't understand how it would have happened without anybody seeing each other and knowing what they were up to. It didn't make any sense. So
that was all there to have an additional action sequence.
that's all it was. It was all a machine gun fight and a bunch more dead bodies, and so it didn't make any sense.
If they would have let at least like one ATF agent also survive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the fact that Duffy, Villanueva, and Reacher are the only good guys that made it is just kind of like, okay, wait, like none of these three got hit, but all of it, and they were in helmets and body armor,
Yeah.
And they all got taken out, but whatever, it was fun. Got to be kind of dumb fun for a little bit there. I know it's a big house, but could nobody at the party hear anything that's going on? A 50 cal gun went off like less than 100 yards from the party. Yeah.
So and Villanueva was up struggling with the dude in the bathroom right upstairs, right? You would think that somebody would be like, hey, what's going on up there? You know what I mean? Like
slam the door on his
slammed
head.
the door. I mean,
threw him through the glass shower door.
All that stuff.
The glass, the tank lid busting over his head. That's all pretty loud. And
I mean,
I will say, this is one thing that I said to my wife, that outlet was not the code in that bathroom, because all outlets in a bathroom need to be GFI protected outlets. And so when you throw that clipper into the
fuse, the fuse would have blown. Yep.
Yeah, it would have just popped right there. They're the outlets with the buttons, people. If you get water in them, they just pop and nothing happens. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So that was, but hey, when you live the living spectacle, Reacher versus Polly lived up to the hype. So we kind of got into that. I thought it was a pretty good fight. I liked it. Went into the Freddy versus Jason level of spectacle.
I also don't get me wrong, I love when you've got a guy that is like unspeakably enormous, and you have a guy like Reacher that's doing his best, but it doesn't matter how hard you hit him, he doesn't feel it. I get that there's characters like that just add a certain level of intrigue. It also, in my mind, kind of deducts from reality a little bit. You know what I mean? It deducts. These people are very human. They're not superhuman. Okay. And so, yes, they're very large, but they are very fragile, just like us. Okay. They've got a big skull, but it's not any less fragile than yours or mine. Right. They've got, so it just kind of depends on, as much as I love the fact that there's somebody like that can really challenge Reacher, it also just kind of pulls back on reality a little bit and makes it so that we're fighting someone that's superhuman instead of someone that is just skilled and big. So
I enjoyed the fight. It was over the top, but it was fun. I enjoyed the Reacher having to get hung by the chain and figure out how to get out of that. I did they cut away when he was pushing on that beam. I was like, man, that's a long way down. When he breaks that thing, he's going to hit the ground hard, because But we didn't see how he landed and pulled that off.
It's also kind of funny that they planned this big ambush and nobody planned on having silencers on their guns. You know what I mean? I thought that was really interesting. It's like they planned this big ambush. They want to be sneaky. You clearly want to be sneaky in an ambush, but nobody's got a silencer on their gun. And so that was kind of the reason he couldn't just shoot Paulie, because he had his gun. You know what I mean? He tried to strangle him initially because he wanted to be quiet. Well, if he'd have had a silencer gun, he just boom, Paulie wouldn't have even known he was there. So I don't know. The whole thing was just, once again, adding levels of idiocy, but it's okay.
But now there is one thing that silencers in real life But of course, they wouldn't have heard it because they don't hear the 50 cal backfiring. Because
Exactly.
in real
Well,
life,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, silencers are not as effective as they are in spy movies. They don't go
Yeah, of
pew
course.
pew. You know, they actually
Yeah.
aren't loud. They're just slightly less
They're just
loud.
slightly less loud. Yeah.
Not completely, just a little bit less. I'm not a big fan of Reacher. It missed the mark for me. Just so many inconsistencies. Uh, I mean, you got to give these things a grain of salt. I
I
didn't
mean,
really.
what I signed up for, was action, and it had action. I mean, I can complain about some of the stuff, but ultimately, it gave me what I signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of inconsistencies. There were more inconsistencies in the series than in this book. More things that just didn't make sense, but it did add up to having a much bigger action spectacle in this last episode. Having everybody involved, having this huge gunfight, just added to the spectacle out of it all. Does it make sense that Duffy and Villanueva went to the ATF and didn't just get immediately arrested for what they had done?
No, it
No,
makes no
no.
sense at all.
Yeah, but if
And
they didn't
does
go
it
to the
make sense
ATF,
that they were allowed to be on the premises? No.
no.
It doesn't make any sense they were allowed to be on the
Yeah,
premises, and
that Reacher was allowed to be there at all.
at
Period.
all.
Does
No.
that make any? No.
No.
But in the book, does that happen? No, it doesn't go down that way. It makes more sense, but you don't have the huge ambush on an ambush firefight. So you got to do some silly things to get your double ambush set up. I will say also in the books, usually what happens at the end of a book, Reacher being a hobo, he doesn't hang around to have little touching conversations with every character in the book.
Mm-hmm.
At the end,
Yeah.
the action ends and Reacher walks away before the authorities show up. So that many times they never even know that Reacher was there. And if they do know he was there, they're not going to find him because he's a hobo. He has no address. He uses no credit cards. He pays cash everywhere. And you never know where he's going to be. He's not worth trying to find. So, yeah, like, did it make sense that after this was all over, Reacher hung around and didn't get arrested? Not really. But hey, whatever. Beck having his redeeming moment was a very good thing for his character. He gets no redeeming moment in the book.
Dan,
so.
It just hit me.
What?
It just hit me why they didn't hear anything. Because this was Anthony Michael Hall's birthday party and they couldn't hear the ruckus. Okay. No. That's what they could not hear the ruckus. All right. Maybe someone could describe the ruckus. I don't know. But anyway, so that's what it was. That was the problem this whole time. But no, Beck as a character having the redeeming arc and saving his son, that was great. That was a great moment in the show.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job the entire series. I think Anthony Michael Hall needs to get more work. He did a great job. So,
and I like it really highlights the brutality. And again, this didn't go down the way in the book, but Reacher has a certain tone of, if not realism, brutality, where like a character can have that redeeming moment and then just they get killed. It doesn't mean they get to make it and have a happy ending. That the happy ending was that he stood up for his son. That's as happy as this happy ending gets to be. He still gets killed, but he gets a redeeming moment before he does. So Reacher can just walk out the door with a $50,000 bike, and Reacher could just walk out the door with a duffel bag full of cash, and nobody stops him. Again,
not in reality.
Yeah, no. They couldn't walk anywhere. Again, Reacher should have left. You need to get arrested for everything that just happened, and that's why in the book he leaves before the authorities ever arrive. He doesn't hang around for that stuff. By the time ambulances and cops and all those people arrive, Reacher is in the wind in the book.
He's gone.
Yeah. But you don't get to have your little touching, epilogues when he does it that way. So I understand why this show did it. As disappointing as the Reacher versus Paulie fight was, I hate it that there was nothing between Reacher and Quinn. He had the moment of realization of who he was before Reacher shot him. So,
I mean, it would have been nice for him to realize who Reacher was sooner, and then and then have kind of a tussle or a moment, but there really was none of that. I think it's because they spent so much time on the Polly fight. They just didn't have time for any of that, really. And Quinn kind of had his moment with Beck, so I think that was
Yeah.
kind of more what that
And,
was. So
and the casting wise, Quinn was never going to have a large physical confrontation
yeah,
with Reacher in the show. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to have a big fight. That would just it would be like the Reacher Polly fight in reverse, where now
yeah,
Reacher is Polly. So
yeah,
uh, you know, and the other thing is in the book there is more of a confrontation with Quinn, but it's more of a psychological confrontation with a lot of talking and a lot of thought, inside somebody's head and what they're thinking. And so that the confrontation they had in the book wouldn't have translated uh to the show very well. So I don't know how they could have worked out a better confrontation for them. At least I will say they were laying on quite a bit of foreshadowing, and I think maybe they had this idea and decided they needed to abandon it. In episode 7, Reacher says to Neagley, "I cared about her name was Cole, right?
yeah.
I cared about Cole the same way I care about you now." When she says, "I'm sorry about what happened to her," and then we end the episode with Neagley on her way alone to where Quinn is. So when that episode wrapped up, I'm like, Frances Neagley is not a damsel in distress that Reacher has to come save. If they go
No,
that way, that's going to be garbage. And I feel like they set
yeah,
it up for you to think that was going to happen, but it didn't happen. And kudos to them for not
yeah.
doing that, because that would be a really poor use of that character. Duffy and Villanueva didn't go to jail. Like how?
He just retired. He said, "You know what? I'm going to retire. I'm going to go to the
Yeah,
beach now. You know what I mean? I'm going to go bring my wife some flowers, and life is going to be good." So, yeah, I mean,
yeah. Duffy at least gets fired. I don't think Villanueva would have
she got
gotten.
fired, but
Yeah,
I mean, how many people are dead because of her? Me and Bonebridger got into this last week. How many people are dead because of her?
large
And
number. It's a
a large number, like all of those ATF agents that we just saw, right? They're all dead because of her. Elliot is dead because of her, right? All the people that have been killed in pursuit of this whole thing. And so you just got to ask yourself, like,
it's a
at what point would somebody actually have been held accountable for this stuff? It's like, I have a feeling when they would have gone to the ATF, it would have been like, okay, hands behind your back. I mean, this is like,
it's approaching Jason Voorhees level. I think the
yeah,
body count. It's getting pretty
it
high.
was ridiculous, man. It was
Yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah, so I'm very much, and she had to kill people in order to keep the cover from being blown, which isn't what cops do. You know what I
no,
mean? And so I feel like this is just one of those situations, like, you
yeah, it's what
gotta,
Reacher does, but Reacher's not a cop, guys. He's a
yeah,
hobo.
yeah,
So
exactly. It's,
it.
I don't
I
know.
will say this season, the biggest standout problem with the season to me was Duffy. Uh, in the books, I would say that Duffy is probably the least competent, least impressive love interest that Reacher is given, because most of his love interests are as hyper competent as he is. He's only attracted to people that are also like very, very good at what they do, because you can kind of tell that's like how Reacher is. And he talks a lot this season about how Duffy is good at what she does, but
Yeah,
there's no evidence of her being good at anything. Like she
yeah,
really screws the pooch for the whole season. Like
yeah,
and the Duffy in the show is even less competent than the Duffy in the book. She is worse and does worse and makes bigger mistakes. But I think they had to twist it some to get her into more of the action scenes, because Duffy in the book is not involved in any of these altercations. It's all just Reacher by himself. And, I don't know. Maybe they wanted to have more of a group aspect to this action. But Duffy getting to shoot the guy in the junk, RoboCop style, was super badass. That was a good scene. That was
that was a
Duffy.
good scene.
Duffy's, yeah.
That was a good scene. I did enjoy that scene. So yeah, that was a good one.
Okay, this show started with lots of promise. Now it's just the Expendables, the series. But see, I like the Expendables. I like big dumb action.
I
This,
don't really care for the Expendables, but if look, man, this is what I signed up for. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I expected this to be anything but guns and explosions and fights. That's what it is. And are there some inconsistencies in the story? Yes, but I do think that it's that way everywhere. There's no matter how good a story is, I can find things to complain about, but I mean, ultimately, it's what I expected. So,
uh, let's see, Jessica. I was convinced the Clipper was going to meet someone's eyeball. I was pleased it was just electrocution. That's Miss Nerd Champ. That's my wife, who I will let you know. If the Clipper did do anything to anyone, she would not have known because she spent this whole episode, almost the whole episode, staring directly at me. She cannot watch any of the fight scenes.
oh, really?
Yeah, the gore of like gunshots and stuff like that is not a problem. But anytime a limb is broken, the
Oh, yeah,
snapping, yeah, the
yeah,
arms, the legs, the ankles, she can't handle it. She can't watch it. She was like, "Why do people like these parts?" I'm like, "These parts are the whole point of this show." like,
yeah.
like you put up with the rest of this show so that you can watch him break this guy's leg. That's why you watch the show, babe. She's like, "No, I don't like these parts." So yeah, I have to explain. I have
Oh,
to like urge. No, that part is over. That part is over. You could turn around now.
hmm. I mean, his leg is still broken, but oh,
But
yeah,
but they've panned back. The break happened. You heard the snap. It's oh, he's still screaming. but oh yeah, but no, I don't know. This season I like 2 better. I think a lot of people like 3 better.
my favorite season is still one.
Yes.
My favorite season, I would say the order that they were released in is the order that I would rank them right now, one, two, and three. But I get why some people might like certain stories better. Um, I would kind of like to have them kind of take just a bit of a step back from trying to make it so broad every single season and including like Neegly every season and those kind of things because I there are rumors and I just read that she's getting her own spin-off series, which I think would be great. You know
I
what I
would watch
mean?
that show
I,
all
I,
day.
I would watch that show all day. And I think that would be great, but I don't think that we need to include Neegly. Like in season one, she didn't really seem to fit, and in season two, she did because of her being in the 110, and the 110 being essentially all the main characters. But in this season, it once again it felt like kind of a little forced thing. She was kind of the person in the chair
Yeah.
until the guys came to assassinate her. But I really feel like each season they've kind of tried to work her in, and I think they kind of maybe need to pull back on that a little bit and kind
Yeah.
of give a little space. Give a little space, let her have her own spin-off for a little bit, and then bring her back in like 2 seasons in a cameo instead. You know what I mean? Like they tried that in season two. Remember, they tried that with the guy that was like the
From Margrave, the
the
detective.
Marshall guy or whatever his
Yeah.
name was,
Yeah.
right? And
That was fun.
that didn't that was fun, but it was also unnecessary. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like I don't know. And so I kind of wish that if they're going to do each one, because the reason that I don't like that is I don't like adding layers of possible chronology to these seasons. I
Yeah.
like each one kind of being, I don't know when it
Just an
happened kind of thing.
encapsulated. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of
Right.
what I like about it. So that's what I loved about Indiana Jones. You know what I mean? We know
Yeah.
what the chronology is, but you wouldn't know if somebody didn't tell you. You know.
Yeah.
So well, that's kind of the way that I would prefer it. But ultimately, yeah, those are the ways I would rank them: season one, season two, season three. But yeah,
I would say Neegly is only of the books they've adapted, the only book that she was actually in is the book that season 2 was based on. She wasn't in the book for season 1 or the book for season 3. And
hmm.
she wasn't introduced until like the 4th or 5th book. And she's not in every book after that. She's in every like third, 4th or 5th book. she makes a small appearance. So she's not.
Yeah, I do feel like they're trying to establish chronology with the seasons, which is something I'm not really a fan of. But it is what it is. I mean, is it the worst atrocity ever? No, it's not. I mean, I can live with it, but it's just something I don't prefer.
I would like to see next season return to a higher level of ultra violence that we had in the first season, just like over the top, gruesome violence like we had in the first season. Because I feel like they've dialed it back a little bit.
And I was talking to Bonebridger about that. I mean, do you remember that my wife, this is the 2 minutes of the show that she has ever watched with me. Okay.
Yeah.
She walked into the room while I was watching and she's like, "Oh, what's this show about?" And I was just like, "Oh, it's kind of like a spy thing." And it was the bathroom fight in jail in season 1. Okay. Talk about ultra violence, right? I mean, that's like, and we have not had anything on that level. Now on that level, we have not had anything in 2 seasons. So I feel like we need to get to that, because that's the kind of thing that this series was that's the foundation that it was built on. I'm not saying we need to have the, like, remember that there was that naked dude that was nailed to the ceiling or the wall, or I mean, and we don't need that, but I mean, what made some of these shows that we love so popular is the fact that there was gratuitous, realistic violence that really brought stakes. That's what made Game of Thrones so captivating, is not only was somebody going to die every episode, but somebody was going to die in devastating, gruesome fashion every episode. And that's kind of what we had in season 1, and we haven't really had it since then. So
stakes wise, we've talked about this almost every week with Cole. If they went the full gruesomeness that they did with that guy nailed to the wall with her, that would have went a long way towards establishing how bad Quinn was. But they definitely, I mean, we even saw her again, a flashback in this episode, and we saw more of her than we did in the previous episode. We saw her face after she was dead, the whole, like, her front upper torso, and it was all relatively unmolested. And you're like, okay, I know he killed her, but like the dialogue is leading to me believe horrors were perpetrated. You know what I'm saying? And where is the horror?
And honestly, I've seen a lot worse in the last 2 seasons. You know, that's kind of that's what makes those things so great. When you have that kind of stuff, it really raises the stakes of the series. And when the stakes are raised, intrigue raises. And that's what makes things so captivating. And I'd like to get to that. I think that's part of the reason this season wasn't that way, is it was dialed back a little bit. So
now season 3's wrapped up. Me and you both preferred 2, and we preferred 1 to 2. So 3 is at the bottom of our reacher barrel, but I feel like, I mean, I still would rate it as good. I like it.
It's very good. Yeah, it's good.
So this is the tagline of the night. It's Reacher versus Daredevil Born Again. Is Reacher season 3 better than Daredevil Born Again so far?
I think so far it is. You know what I mean? I think so far it is. Not to be fair, we've got the full picture of the story. But I think an adapted work is always going to do better than an original work anyways. And I think that's kind of, even though we've got adapted characters in Daredevil, that story is not anything that's directly adapted. And that is our problem. That's our problem, is it seems like you're making it up as you go along versus having an outline that you can kind of follow step by step. And that's kind of why I think maybe it's struggling a little bit more. But the plot to Reacher definitely seemed a lot more linear, a lot easier to follow. And I would say that as of right now, maybe when Daredevil wraps up, I'll feel differently. But as of right now, I would say Reacher is better.
Yeah. would definitely rate Reacher ahead. And for reference, I would say that none of the episodes of Reacher would be better than the best season of the Netflix Daredevil.
No.
But the worst season of Reacher so far is still better than what we're getting so far in this Daredevil. Maybe this Daredevil turns it around.
Yeah.
There's irons in the fire. But I don't know. Hopefully there's still some of you out there. Me and Tim will be back here again next Thursday to talk about something. Reacher has all wrapped up, so we haven't even talked about what the next topic will be. And we're going to continue to cover Daredevil. We may be back on Bone Bridger's channel as soon as
Tuesday.
the episode ends on Tuesday. We need to get with Bone Bridger on that. We may be doing Daredevil here on Thursday. We may have a mystery topic. We may just come and review various flavors of Fiddle Faddle next Thursday. That may be the whole thrust of everything. But until then, folks, we will see you next week. Like, share, subscribe. Find Jonathan on Comic Book Cinema.